Well, good day, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? We're doing okay so far. But as you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. Sudden changes have happened, and some of us might be finding ourselves spending a lot of time at home, maybe with more time on our hands than we otherwise would have. And so I think this is a great opportunity to talk a little bit about creativity and typewriters. Stay tuned. Well, as you might know, that I've downsized somewhat of my typewriter collection. I still have quite a few. This here is a 1930 Underwood portable, and it is one of the keepers in my collection. I keep it out in my patio room adjacent to the dining room. It's in a convenient location to grab and take somewhere in the house and type. Last week, Monday or Tuesday maybe, I took it out to the front porch. It was a beautiful day, and I did a little bit of typing. And one of the things that I did with that typing, it ended up being a 3-page blog article, was I did double spacing. Double spacing. I haven't really done double spacing, especially my blog articles, and I don't know why. Well, I've been a chronic single spacer with typewriters, and I've done this for years, and I don't know why. Perhaps it started when I started typecasting on my blog around, it would have been probably around 2007 or 2008 when I started using typewriters for my blog. I think it was trying to fit as many words as possible, as many lines as possible in a given space on the blog page. My template for my blogger page, the image size is 650 pixels wide. That kind of limits how long of a line you can have and still make it readable. If you scanned a full width letter size page and shrunk it down to 650 pixels wide, it would be really hard to read it, especially on a mobile device. So I tried to keep my column widths narrower, and consequently I try to keep single spacing to fit more words on the page to compensate for the narrow column. I think that was the main reason why I single spaced. But a lot of my machines have been used over the years only single spaced, and I think that's kind of strange, actually. A number of my machines offer single and double spacing only, like for instance this Underwood, but quite a few of the others offer single, 1.5 and double spacing. And as I was writing my blog article last week, I got to thinking afterwards, I wonder how the line spacing affects the creative process. Does it affect the creative process? I know for certain it affects the legibility of the finished work. It affects how the reader interacts with the work. And that's pretty obvious, because a double-spaced or 1.5 line spacing on a piece just makes it more readable, and it makes it more enjoyable to read, I'm sure, especially with a mono-spaced font like mechanical typewriters have, right? So one of the things I discovered, though, in this blog article that I wrote, which was nothing profound, by the way. The blog article itself was about making these homemade stitch-bound notebooks, right? One of the things I noticed in the process of writing that was I became more efficient, or at least I became more conscious of how efficient I needed to be with my words, because I was going to have half as many lines per page to write with. And so I had to be less verbose, more efficient with what I was trying to communicate, while at the same time, the legibility of the finished work posted on the blog page is going to be better, more enhanced because of the double spacing. So the other thing, besides more efficiency and more readability, is with double spacing, you're more aware of the blank space, or what you might call the negative space on the page. And this gets to the whole subject of typography. And typography is a field that was well advanced centuries before the mechanical typewriter age. This whole concept of balancing the negative space on the page with the printed text really has a lot to do with how pleasing a page looks and its legibility, and that's the whole thing about the art of typography. In fact, the art of font design or type design has a lot to do with balancing negative space and positive space in the shapes of the letters, right? But I like to think of the blank space between the lines is sort of like the pauses or the rests in music, those rests between signatures or notes. And I'm immediately reminded of, for instance, John Cage's work, his avant-garde musical style, right, of where a lot of blank space, silent moments in the score are used. Anyway, this whole thing of double spacing your words, your lines of text, just reminds me that it perhaps gives the reader a chance to, as he scans from one line to the next, maybe there's a little bit more of a pause or a little bit more of a reflection, or at least the word density isn't as great, and it gives him a chance to maybe relax and think about it more as he's reading it. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is there some effect on the readability of the work as the reader interacts with double spacing versus single spacing or 1.5 spacing? But also, have you experienced some differences in the creative process as you use a wider line spacing? I'd like to know that. Leave a comment down below if you can. Now, since we're talking about line spacing, I have to mention this. I've owned 4 Olivetti machines over the years. I've owned 3 Lettera 22s and a Olivetti Underwood 21. And every one of those machines, the line spacing selector on the left side of the carriage had little engraved numbers that said 1, 2, and 3 for the 3 positions for the line spacing. But what they actually were 1, 1.5, and 2. And the way you can tell that is when you set it to the 1 position, how many clicks does the ratchet of your line spacing lever make? A lot of machines, when you put it on single spacing and you carefully move the carriage return lever, you'll see 2 clicks. Each one of those clicks is a half line. If you set the line spacing selector to the middle setting, you'll often find on these machines that it'll click 3 times. 3 half lines, which is 1.5 lines. So all of my Olivettis were marked 1, 2, and 3, but they were in practice 1, 1.5, and 2. And I just found that very interesting. I suppose, I mean, I'm only surmising here, that maybe they were a common part, like especially the 3 Lettera 22s I had, maybe it was a common part they had, and they were just using them, and it didn't matter whether the machine was actually 1, 2, or 3 line spacing, or 1, 1.5, and 2. They were going to use the same part with the same engraving regardless. So I don't know if any of you guys out there own Olivetti Letteras or any other Olivetti machines, but check that out. Check the line spacing and see if it really is 1, 2, or 3, or is it 1, 1.5, and 2. But that's always kind of been an interesting thing I found specific to the Olivettis, which was interesting. Well, in an attempt to kind of understand a little bit more about the line spacing with common brands of manual typewriters, I have gone to my one of my notebooks. This is blog articles written since 2016, and a number of different typewriters are used. This is a 3-ring binder full of typings, and so a lot of the American brands I measure, their line spacing seems to be 6 lines per vertical inch. That's pretty consistent. And even going up to the thermal electronic typewriters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 6 lines per inch. But when I get into some of the European typewriters, like specifically my Hermes Rocket and the Olympia, like this SG3 blog article I'm looking at. So the Rocket is interesting. So the closest that I can measure the Rocket is, it looks like, if you look at the character spacing horizontally, it looks like it's roughly 13 characters per inch. But actually, it ends up being almost exactly 5 characters in 1 centimeter, or 10 characters in 2 centimeters. It seems to be almost exactly 5 characters per centimeter. So the character spacing looks like it's metric. And the vertical spacing, the line spacing, appears to be actually 5 lines in 2 centimeters. Right? So 5 lines in 2 centimeters. So it looks like the Hermes Rocket is actually a metric spaced typewriter. But regardless of the actual line spacing of your favorite typewriter, I think during this interesting time in our history when we have this virus going around the globe and many of us might find ourselves sequestered alone in our homes, we might find ourselves with a little bit extra time. And we might need something to distract us from the ongoing crisis. And, we just need to use our time wisely. If we're given the opportunity to quarantine at home, what an opportunity to dive into some of those creative projects that you've always wanted to do, but maybe haven't had the time or the motivation to do it. What a great time to do that. So for me, I need to do more typing. I need to do more writing. I'm going to experiment with more writing styles, more just maybe the mechanical typing parts of it. I'm going to experiment with more techniques. And one of these techniques is going to be line spacing. I'm going to do basic journaling and writing with various line spacings and see how I get on with it. For instance, I can already think, if I go with, let's say, double line spacing, well, what is that going to do? Well, if I'm typing using individual sheets of paper, letter-sized paper, I'm going to be stopping to replace the paper twice as often as if I was single line spacing. On the other hand, the stuff I have written in double line spacing will be easier to edit if I want to edit it, and also more legible if it's a finished work that someone else is going to read. So there's a trade-off. The other option is maybe I could use a scroll of paper, the Jack Kerouac method, but use double spacing or 1.5 line spacing. In other words, I have a lot more paper. I can type continuously without the interruption of page breaks and still get on with the continuous writing process. So there are some various avenues I'm thinking about for creative writing here. Also, I should mention before I go that maybe this is a good opportunity. This may be a once-in-a-lifetime, a once-in-a-century opportunity for us as creatives to document our time, our life. And what an interesting time it is right now. Maybe you should think about documenting your life. What is it like living in this sudden crisis? How does it affect you? How does it affect your family and friends and people you see or meet out on the streets and stores or wherever you go? Maybe that's an idea we should all work on, and I think I'm going to be working on that too. Well, I'm going to close for now, but I wish you the very best. I hope you stay well physically, health-wise, but also creatively and spiritually. If you have to be quarantined or affected in some adverse way by this crisis, make the best of it. Stay creative. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.